JJ Starling and Donnie Freeman returned to Syracuse basketball, thank goodness. And now here's what we should expect from them this upcoming season.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Of course, we're always free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, we are going to talk about the two players that returned to Syracuse basketball from a year ago. We'll talk about why Donnie Freeman is one of Syracuse's biggest X factors this season. And I get it. He's a good player, but I will explain later on why I consider him to be an X factor. We'll go over Donnie Freeman's role for next season before that. And first, we're going to start with JJ Starling's role for this upcoming season. All that and more here on today's show of Locked On Syracuse. Now, before we get to everything, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So only two players are back from last year's Syracuse basketball team. And the good news is they were really the only two players that mattered. It was JJ Starling and Donnie Freeman. Obviously, with everyone else going, we wish them nothing but the best. But the two that really mattered the most, JJ Starling and Donnie Freeman, of course. And I also do want to start this podcast by crediting head coach Adrian Autry. I know that I am a big Adrian Autry critic, but the fact that he was able to retain JJ Starling and Donnie Freeman was one of the big positives of this offseason. Did they come back for free? Of course not. We know that money was certainly a factor in getting Starling and Freeman back. Having said that, don't underestimate the power of relationships and the familiarity with Syracuse basketball. So the Orange, they brought back this entire coaching staff. At least they were able to keep their two best players from a year ago. Now let's get into JJ Starling's role for this upcoming season. He is a 6'4", 200-pound shooting guard with one more year of college eligibility remaining. Let's talk about last season, and then we'll really get into this season coming up, okay? I think, and feel free to chime in right now in the comments section below, but I think JJ Starling was asked to do way too much a season ago for this team. He had to play the most minutes by far on Syracuse basketball, nearly 35 minutes per game. Nobody else on the team even hit 3-0. I think Eddie Lampkin was second on the team in minutes played, and he was at 29.9. So JJ Starling, by far and away, played the most minutes per game on Syracuse last year. He was expected to be the team's primary scorer, which he was, and I don't expect that that's going to change a whole lot this upcoming season, but he averaged 16 shot attempts per game, and nobody else on Syracuse a year ago even took 10 shots per game. So not only was he relied upon to be the team's leading scorer and the team's primary shot creator, but he was taking more shots than anyone else on the team, and it wasn't even particularly close. On top of all that, he was also asked to play a lot of point guard as well. Because you think about it, a year ago, who was Syracuse's point guard? Well, it was Jaquan Carlos, who wasn't very good to begin with. And then behind Jaquan Carlos, Adrian Autry would frequently bring up how Syracuse didn't really have another good ball handler. And so JJ Starling, at many points during last year, was asked to play point guard. So he was playing point guard and shooting guard a year ago. Now he averaged 18 points per game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. So he wasn't awful or anything like that. JJ Starling had a pretty decent year. However, with him being asked to do so much, I think it caused his efficiency to go down from the previous season. He shot under 41% from the field, under 27% from the three-point line, under 70% from the free throw line. He's a good player, But JJ Starling is not Superman. So let's get into this season and the ideal role for JJ Starling, which is a slight reduction. Again, I'm not sitting here saying that JJ Starling's bad, he's no good, and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm just saying, okay, he was asked to do too much a year ago. Hopefully, he's not asked to do all that. He doesn't have to be the team's primary scorer, or he doesn't have to play point guard. So let's dive right into it. I still think he's going to be the team's primary scorer. When you look top to bottom on this roster, he's the one guy you look at and you say, hey, we need a bucket. Let's give the ball to JJ Starling. Yes, you got Naithan George. You got Donnie Freeman who can score. Nate Kings is mostly a three-point shooter for Syracuse, although he could put the ball down on the floor too. And also you got Kai and Anthony coming off the bench. I should mention that. But JJ Starling should probably lead Syracuse basketball in points per game next season. But I don't necessarily expect that he's going to be taking 16 shots a game. And if he is taking 16 shots a game, I don't expect that JJ Starling will be the only player on Syracuse taking more than 10 shots per game at that point. He is best when he is going downhill and attacking the basket. And hopefully a guy like Nate Kings can space the floor for Syracuse. And a guy like Naithan George, the new point guard, can distribute at a high level and get it to JJ Starling, which will help his efficiency go up. Now, speaking of point guard, I don't expect that JJ Starling's going to have to play a whole lot of point guard this upcoming season, which he didn't have to do his first season at Syracuse when they had Judah Mintz. So I think it's going to be something like that. The only real way he plays point guard this upcoming season is in the event of an emergency, aka an injury to Nate George, which, knock on wood, hopefully that doesn't happen, right? But you got Naithan George, the Georgia Tech transfer, who's going to be the starting point guard, 12 points, 6.5 assists last season, which led the ACC. And then behind George, there's true freshman Luke Fennell. And because George is already a minutes eater and going to get 35, 36 minutes per game, Luke Fennell is not even going to have to play a whole lot as a true freshman. Obviously, if he plays really well in limited minutes, his role might increase. But the point is that Syracuse is pretty set at point guard for 40 minutes in a game. So JJ Starling probably not going to have to play a whole lot of point guard. As far as minutes per game is concerned, Starling last year played over 34 minutes per game, similar to what he played his sophomore year, which was his first full season with Syracuse basketball. The year before that, as a freshman, he was with Notre Dame. I could see that number going down a little bit for JJ Starling. Maybe 32 minutes per game. How about that? Because keep in mind the backup to JJ Starling this upcoming season at shooting guard is Kai and Anthony. And also keep in mind that Nate Kings, even though he's probably going to be the starting small forward for Syracuse basketball, is probably better off being a shooting guard. And so you could see lineups where if JJ is on the bench, Nate Kings becomes the shooting guard and a guy like Tyler Betsy becomes the small forward for Syracuse basketball. So there are plenty of different ways to give JJ Starling more rest than what he had last year and the year before that. What do you think JJ Starling's role is going to be this upcoming season? Comment your thoughts in the comment section below. Overall, for me, I believe that he's still the team's primary shot creator, and he's probably going to lead the team in scoring. But I'm hoping that his efficiency goes up because we're not asking him to be something that he's not. That's where I'm at with JJ Starling. Now, coming up, we'll talk about Syracuse's other returner in Donnie Freeman in his role this upcoming season. And later on in the podcast, we'll discuss why Donnie Freeman is the X factor for Syracuse basketball. That's coming up next on Locked On Syracuse. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. Let's now discuss Donnie Freeman's role for Syracuse basketball this upcoming season. It's Donnie Freeman, a 6'9", 205-pound power forward with 3 more years of eligibility. And speaking of eligibility, let's start the conversation right here, okay? I think no matter how you slice it with Donnie Freeman, I don't really care that he's got 3 more years of eligibility. I think this is his last year with Syracuse basketball, no matter what. I do not believe that 3 more years of eligibility really matters for Syracuse, no matter what. There's the positive, which is he could be huge for Syracuse basketball, and they're able to have a big-time season, but as a result, probably enters the NBA draft, and we say goodbye to Donnie Freeman. There's the other possibility that Donnie Freeman simply transfers out of Syracuse basketball after they have a bad season once again, and the entire coaching staff gets fired, which we really don't need to talk about that much here on this podcast. And then there's another possibility, which is Donnie Freeman decides no matter what, he enters the NBA draft or he decides to enter the transfer portal. No matter how you slice it, no matter the scenario you really come up with, I don't believe that Donnie Freeman will be playing 2 more seasons with Syracuse basketball unless he suffers, and I really hope so, knock on wood once again, unless he suffers some sort of season-ending injury, which you can't really predict, right? Overall, this is probably it for Donnie Freeman. So even though he's got 3 more years of eligibility, which is cool, this is not the 1980s where your player is going to spend 3-4 seasons and then decide to go pro. It's the modern day of college basketball. It's just 1 more year, really, for Donnie Freeman. Now, as far as his role is concerned, I think this is going to be not so much really a hot take here. He's going to be the team's starting power forward, at least to start this season. That being said, Donnie Freeman, unlike last year, where Syracuse did have a capable starting center in Eddie Lampkin, so Donnie really didn't have to play the 5 a whole lot. This upcoming season, he's probably going to be playing some center one way or another. You got William Kyle and Ibrahim Souare as Syracuse's 2 starting centers right now. And again, I don't care that William Kyle and Ibrahim Souare are only 6'9". That does not matter. What matters is really their ability. And so, look, if those 2 could really hold down the fort and they could be more than capable centers in the ACC, then great. Then all Donnie Freeman really has to focus on is being the team's primary power forward this upcoming season. However, chances are he's going to be playing some center. We talked about how important William Kyle is to this team because the better that he plays, the more minutes that he'll get. So it'll limit the amount that Donnie has to play center. But no matter what, he's going to be playing center this upcoming season. And if William Kyle flames out and Ibrahim Souare flames out, meaning they don't necessarily play well, then Donnie Freeman could shift into being the team's primary starting center, which would then leave true freshman Sadiq White to be the team's primary power forward. So that's the positioning for Donnie Freeman this upcoming season. So it's a little bit different than a year ago because of the uncertainty at the center position with this team. As far as shots, I expect this to go up as well here. So last year, Donnie Freeman attempted a little less than 10 shots per game. So I think that will go up. He also included in that 10 shots per game, took about 2.5 3-pointers per game. I'm hoping this upcoming season that 2.5 3-point attempts per game either stays where it's at or even goes down a little bit because Donnie Freeman is best, at least what we saw in his true freshman season. He's best in the mid-range and inside the paint. That's where he's best. He's got a really nice touch around that free throw line area. But when he steps beyond the arc, he did shoot 33% from the three-point line, which is not terrible for a power forward. But ideally, he's in the mid-range. And I know that's not necessarily the most ideal thing in the modern age of basketball in general. The mid-range shot has basically gone away. It's now you either shooting layups and dunks or you're shooting a three. I get it. Thank you, Steph Curry, for that, for the revolutionizing basketball. But still, I think if your strength is the mid-range, then capitalize on your strength, right? We'll also discuss this more in the next segment when we're talking about Donnie Freeman being one of the X factors for Syracuse basketball this upcoming season. I think he's going to be playing a lot more than 25 and a half minutes per game. I checked the numbers this morning, and I'm recording this on Sunday, May 18th at about 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern here. I was kind of surprised to find that Donnie only played about 25 and a half minutes per game. Maybe that's because he was playing injured. So Adrian Autry was limiting the amount of minutes he was playing over the course of the season. Obviously, he had that foot injury, which ultimately knocked him out for the rest of or for about half the year at that point. So maybe he's playing hurt, but I think no matter what, he's got to be playing more than 25 and a half. I expect that this upcoming season, Donnie Freeman's probably going to be playing close to, if not, he will be playing at least 30 minutes per game. I think that's fair to expect for someone who was a former top recruit, which we'll get into soon, and could have a big jump in their true sophomore season. But I want to hear from you right now in the comments section below. What do you think Donnie Freeman's role is going to be this upcoming season? Do you think that he might lead the team in scoring? Maybe he scores more than a guy like JJ Starling. That's why I want to hear from you in the comments section below. And coming up, we are going to discuss why Donnie Freeman is one of the biggest X factors on Syracuse basketball this upcoming season. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. When you think of an X factor, it's typically not a star player because we expect that the stars are going to be stars. JJ Starling is not an X factor. He's just a good player. Naithan George is not an X factor. He's just a good player. Honestly, when I usually think of an X factor in any sport, I think of someone that's under the radar, but could have a major impact on winning or losing a game. And if we're talking basketball here, which is what we're doing, college or pro, one of the best examples that I can think of off the top of my head of an X factor is J.R. Smith. Shout out to the Knicks fans that are watching or listening to this podcast. I myself am not a Knicks fan, but Knicks fans know it. Cavalier fans know it. That J.R. Smith was a massive X factor when he was playing in the NBA. Because one night, he would score 30 points and he would look like he was the best player in the world. And then the next night, all of a sudden, he's 1 for 9 from three-point land. He scores 4 points, and you're wondering why this guy has a job in the NBA. That's who I think of when I think of an X factor, a guy like J.R. Smith. So rarely do I ever consider a star player to be an X factor because we expect them to be stars. But in the case of Donnie Freeman, I actually think it does apply to him. I do believe that he is an X factor and either the first or the second most X factor on Syracuse. It's him and William Kyle. So it's really the starting front court for Syracuse this upcoming season. Let's get into the backstory of Donnie Freeman because this is going to help prove, at least my opinion, that Donnie Freeman is a massive X factor. And I want to hear from you, your thoughts in the comments section below right now, how much of an idiot I am for considering Donnie Freeman an X factor, okay? So heading into 2024, so the last season that just happened, Donnie Freeman was Syracuse's highest rated basketball recruit since Carmelo Anthony in 2002. Multiple major recruiting services ranked Donnie Freeman as the 6th best player overall in the nation. And if you look at Rivals and 24/7, ESPN, and On3, it might have been 24/7 Sports that was lowest on Donnie Freeman. The lowest he got was 15th in the country, the 15th best player in the country coming out of high school. So no matter what, this was a truly elite recruit out of high school. Better than what Syracuse has coming in this year. Guys like Sadiq White and Kian Anthony, those are borderline top 30 guys. Those are good, certainly excellent recruits, not meaning to minimize them, but there are levels to recruits. Donnie Freeman was that next tier. This is someone who we pretty much expected right away was going to have a major impact on Syracuse basketball. And I think he had a decent year. I think he had a solid year relative to expectations. I think the fact that he was the best recruit since that big name of Carmelo Anthony kind of hinders the perception of the year that Donnie Freeman actually had. But when he was healthy, he averaged 13 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, over 50% from the field, and 33% from the three-point line. I think he does leave a bit to be desired defensively. So I think that's one of the big areas where he can grow. And speaking of growth, I mean, he does have to get stronger. That is undeniable. He does have to put on more weight, really just more muscle weight. That being said, Donnie Freeman put up 13 and 8 on that efficiency, playing about 25 and a half minutes per game, which is what I mentioned in the previous segment. In fact, he was only 4th on the team in minutes per game last season. The guys ahead of him were JJ Starling. Okay, that's fine. That's to be expected. Eddie Lampkin was ahead of him, which kind of makes sense because he was the team's starting center, and Syracuse, I mean, the only center they really had behind him was Naheem McLeod. So Eddie had to play a lot. But then Jaquan Carlos also averaged more minutes per game than Donnie Freeman a year ago. Yeah, brilliant coaching there by Adrian Autry, but that's neither here nor there. I digress. Maybe it's because Donnie Freeman was dealing with the injury, so they had to limit his minutes. I'll listen to that part. Other than that, there's no reason why he should be playing less than him. But let's bring it back to the present day for this upcoming season. Donnie Freeman is probably going to take a sophomore jump. He's going to be better this upcoming season. That's a fair point. That is not a hot take whatsoever. He's going to be better as a sophomore than what he was as a freshman. But where the X factor comes in with Donnie Freeman is this. How much of a leap is he going to take? How much of a leap will Donnie Freeman take in his true sophomore season? He's got the potential, given his pedigree, to be Syracuse's best player this upcoming season. He's got the potential and the pedigree to potentially be All-ACC next season. I could very easily see him being first team or second team All-ACC. Easily. Judah Mintz, who we'll talk about in a second here, he was second team All-ACC as a true sophomore. So why can't Donnie Freeman do something similar to that and take that next step, right? And I do also think that look, maybe it's me wearing my orange-colored glasses, so I guess I'm putting them on right now. I do think there is an outside chance, I'm not predicting this to happen, but I'm saying that there's an outside chance that if he really takes that next step in development, that he could crack one of the All-American teams for next season. Maybe. That it's on the table with a guy like him where we're sitting here around this time next year and we're saying Donnie Freeman's got to be a top 15 pick in the NBA draft. That's where the X factor comes in. He's probably going to get better as a sophomore than where he was as a freshman, but how much better will he actually get for Syracuse? And it goes without saying, the better he gets, the more he improves, the more wins it's probably going to lead to for Syracuse basketball. I know, earth-shattering take right there I just gave you all. What do you think? Are you convinced now that not JJ Starling or J.R. Smith, are you convinced now that Donnie Freeman is one of, if not the biggest X factor on Syracuse basketball next season? I want to hear you right now in the comments section below. Now let's get to Judah Mintz, which I teased a couple of minutes ago here. while these players, Judah Mintz and Donnie Freeman, are obviously completely different, they play different positions, they have different strengths, different weaknesses, I kind of view Donnie this upcoming season in a similar light to how I view Judah Mintz heading into his sophomore season, which was 2023-24. I wasn't yet the host of this podcast, by the way, but I'm just saying for the record, I remember my thought process at the time with Judah, which is he's going to get better as a sophomore, and he did get better as a sophomore, but the question going in was how much better was he going to get? And again, he did take a little bit of a jump. He scored a lot more as a sophomore. Syracuse won more games with Judah Mintz as a sophomore compared to when he was as a freshman. But it wasn't enough of a jump for Syracuse. Am I blaming Judah Mintz for that year and not making the tournament? Absolutely not. He was the furthest reason why you would say why Syracuse didn't make the tournament. Like the last one you would think of. But he did not take enough of a jump. In fact, his three-point percentage actually went down his sophomore season compared to his freshman season, and we were hoping that that efficiency was going to go up from him in his sophomore year. So again, with a guy like Judah, who had a really big freshman year, he got better as a sophomore. He was second team All-ACC, but it just wasn't quite enough for Syracuse basketball, which leads me again back to Donnie Freeman being an X factor. He's going to be better. He's probably going to average more than 13 points and 8 rebounds a game. He might do a little bit better efficiency-wise. Maybe he improves defensively. But how much of a leap does he truly take for this team? Comment your thoughts in the comments section below right now if you believe that Donnie Freeman is one of the biggest X factors for Syracuse this upcoming season. Now, as far as what is coming up on Locked On Syracuse in the future, tomorrow we will have another podcast for you all, again, discussing Syracuse basketball. We're going to talk about the role and the expectations of the 4 Syracuse freshmen that are coming in. Sadiq White, Kyan Anthony, Luke Fennell, and Aaron Womack. Originally, I was just going to do one podcast talking about the returners and the freshmen, but then I realized I could stretch it out into 2 podcasts. So we will talk about the freshmen tomorrow on the show. And then the following podcast, we will evaluate the Syracuse basketball strengths on the team, follow that up with Syracuse basketball weaknesses, and then we'll discuss some Syracuse football. All that and more coming up on Locked On Syracuse in the near future. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On Portal Show with football recruiting expert Brian Smith, who's got the latest rumors and signings each and every day. And you can be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. You can find the Portal Podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse, and I will see you all again soon.